Hello, welcome to week 2 of my vlog series on the 100 best bands or artists of all time. Last week in the introduction I told you that the first band, we'd be doing the bands alphabetically. I told you the first band, in contrast to most of the bands I'll be choosing, was a pop band. Most of you guessed that it was ABBA. ABBA, the second greatest musical product to come out of Sweden, after, of course, Spotify. Their history begins around 1970. Previously, the four members of ABBA, that is Anna Fried, Benny, Bjorn and Agneta, the initial letters of their names, A, B, B and A, they'd all been successful musicians in their native Sweden. But around 1970 we started forming both musical partnerships and sexual partnerships. In fact, they all married. Their first hit in Sweden was in 1973 when they had a #1 with Ring Ring, but they failed to get Ring Ring into the Eurovision Song Contest. They entered the Swedish contest, came close, didn't get a cigar. They tried again the year after with a song called Waterloo, and as we know, Waterloo, the rest is history. It won the 1974 Eurovision Song Contest. Now, why was I, a prog rock loving schoolboy from a snobbish grammar school, what was I doing watching a pop song contest? Because to admit to like pop at the school I went to would get you ostracised by all your schoolmates. Actually, in hindsight, that would have been a bad idea, and it more or less happened anyway. But no, it wasn't a thing to like a pop group. But I enjoyed the Eurovision Song Contest because in those days it was about the only thing which stood a chance of winning. Football team was rubbish. Not a lot's changed there. The cricket team was rubbish. That has changed a bit. We used to win the Eurovision Song Contest, so we'd won it in 1973. So the 74 contest was in Brighton. Waterloo not only won it, it was perhaps the greatest ever performance at the Eurovision Song Contest. It certainly has won polls to say as much. But it seemed for a while like it would be they'd be a one-hit wonder within the UK. Waterloo went to #1. That was it. The follow-up singles failed. Even when they did the next album, the ABBA album, why would you call your third album ABBA? Surely that should have been the name of your first album, but no, ABBA called their third album ABBA. And the first single from it, So Long, good song, makes my playlist, didn't make it in the UK. The turning point was SOS, which did make #6. A relatively low performance, relatively poor performance by ABBA's later standards. The next song, Mamma Mia, was #1, and then wall-to-wall success for the rest of the decade, to be honest. They had 8 consecutive #1 albums. Estimates vary as to how many records they have sold over the years, but the lowest estimate is 140 million. Some reckon they might have sold 500 million records in total. They had 9 #1 singles. So they've done so many great pop songs. They've got a great eye for melody. That's the key to their success. They really know a melody, but their production values were to die for. So with the two girls singing and the guys doing backing vocals and guitar and keyboard. They made quite a defined sound. So you're spoilt for choice. Of their 9 number 1 singles, only 5 make my playlist. One of their number 1 singles, Dancing Queen, stands above all the others. It's in 2020 there was a poll of what is the most popular floor filler of all time. It got 36% of the vote. Of course, me being me, I don't particularly like that song. It doesn't make my playlist. Whereas an obscure album track from their Sweden only album before Waterloo, the King Kong song, because it was a bit rocky and a bit like the glam rock I used to listen to with Sweet and Slade, does make my playlist. In a later video, we'll show you how to amend my playlist if you don't quite agree with me. But you should agree with me because I'm right. Around the turn of the decade, a bit of a magic faded, the couples divorced, the records weren't quite as successful. We never really had the full rock and roll blowout, which so many of the bands in this book you will see. They were a fairly disappointingly clean-cut crew. Anna Fried's probably one with the best backstory. She was actually born in Norway during the war, but the scandal was that her father was a German soldier, so they more or less got chased out of Norway, which is why she ended up in Sweden. But she's a perfectly fine woman ever since. She's had 3 marriages, not quite Henry VIII, only 3 marriages, and she married very well. Eventually, she became a princess. Yes, seriously, princess in Switzerland. The next closest we get to any kind of rock and roll scandal was Benny, because it turned out that Benny had a drink problem. Problem was, we only found out about Benny's drink problem 10 years after he'd kicked it. He'd been teetotal for 10 years before it ever came out. We obviously have a very good marketing department. ABBA never actually announced their retirement. They might still be going for all we know. There was rumours a couple of years ago that they were recording a couple of songs. They were offered $1 billion to do a tour. But personally, I think we've seen the last of them. They're still working though, some of them, in the music scene, just not as ABBA. But why do I didn't like them back in the 70s. Why do I like them now? Like a lot of people, retrospectively, as I've matured, I realised actually ABBA are quite cool. They started to get a lot of exposure, but there are a couple of very good Australian films which were built around ABBA's music. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and Muir's Wedding both featured ABBA extensively. The comedian Alan Partridge, or Steve Coogan to give him his correct name, did his finest TV series. It was called Knowing Me, Knowing You, in tribute, of course, to the ABBA song. ABBA are cool. In 1992, they had their best-selling album, their greatest hits album, which they called Gold. An enormous success. The second best-selling album of all time in the UK, with 5.5 million copies sold. Not quite as big everywhere else in the world, but it's still the 22nd best-selling album in the world. It sold 30 million worldwide. But also, we've got to remember Mamma Mia. Mamma Mia was originally just a stage show in London in 1999. It's been in the London West End ever since, apart from during this COVID period. So apart from during lockdown, Mamma Mia has become a permanent thing in London's West End. It did 9 years on Broadway. It was Mamma Mia which made ABBA huge in America. It's Mamma Mia which gave them their first #1 album in America, or which gave ABBA's music its first #1 in America. But as though the stage show wasn't enough, of course, they made films. The first film was, I'm told, a bit rubbish. It involved actors who can't sing giving us inferior versions of ABBA songs. Nonetheless, it's one of the top 10 grossing films of all time in the UK. The second Mamma Mia film, Mamma Mia 2, is a bit better. According to the critics, I can't say because I've only seen Mamma Mia 2, but I quite enjoyed it. I was half asleep on a red-eye plane, a 24-hour plane journey. I was half asleep, but I did enjoy it. So, that's it. That's the news. ABBA are now a cool band. I'm sure you've listened to them already, but if not, please do so. Next week, who have we got next week? Well, a very different band from ABBA. One similarity they have is, unlike most of the bands in the book, they're not American, nor are they British. The other similarity is they do also begin with the letter A. Try and have a guess. Who do you think it might be? See you next week. Bye.